We're good.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Just checking the unassigned. I think we've got everyone from CCAA in here now. So I guess I'd like to start by thanking everyone that turned out today. We tried this 2 years ago virtually, where we were going to do a U Sports breakout and a CCAA breakout. And there was about 6 representatives from CCAA schools, myself and I think 5 OCAA reps. So I really appreciate the large number today. As you heard in the introduction there from CSC and the U Sports side, this has been a heavy U Sports group for the first few years of the CANSIDA branch. And I served as the CCAA rep at large for a year, and then Ryan came in last summer and has now served for a year from Seneca. And we saw this group, I guess, as an opportunity to not only have our members benefit from what CSC and CANSIDA's providing throughout the year in terms of professional development, but hopefully grow a network within the CCAA where we can share some ideas, best practices, and kind of help each other out. They were talking about how the Power 5 NCAA conferences have so many more resources than many of the other people that are members of CSC, but I would wager a guess that our members, have the fewest number of staff, financial resources, those type of elements dedicated to this side of varsity athletics. So anything we can do, I think, to maybe lift each other up would be beneficial moving forward. So in the spirit of that, we decided, rather than just talk about the CCAA, we wanted to bring some people on that are from member institutions that we've either worked with on national championships or just follow throughout the season, and have them kind of give a brief synopsis of what they're doing in a few of these communication areas, marketing areas. And then we want to open it up to questions and answers and even suggestions from this group after each of the presentations. And then if there's time at the end, we're going to do a kind of again an open discussion on how all 3 levels, so the national level at CCAA, the conference levels, and the right down to the varsity levels, can kind of work together, particularly on social media and sharing information to kind of boost everybody's programs. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan as our current CCA member at large on CANSIDA, as he's going to moderate the first portion.
All right. So Brendan mentioned we have a couple presenters today. We'll start off with Matt Carter from VIU. We'll be talking about game day experience. Sapir Singh from Mohawk College on videography and photography, and then Robert Murray will wrap things up from Keano College, social media. At any time, if you have any questions, raise your hand or use the chat function, and I'm sure our experts will be more than happy to provide some more insight in their I guess designated areas for today. As Jill had mentioned, we all wear a number of hats in our roles, but these individuals have a lot of information to share and a lot of excellent information that I think we can all benefit from. So this time we'll pass things over to Matt Carter.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ryan. Thanks to CCAA again for bringing us on here. Also, shout out to Robert Murray, who posted in the chat. Yes, first to get into the breakout. Showing that Keano Husky. Go get him. I do want to say also a happy National Indigenous Peoples Day to everyone coming here from the unceded territory of the Nanaimo First Nation here on Vancouver Island. Really happy to be able to share this day and chat with everybody. As mentioned, we're talking about a little game day experience here. We're going to talk about a few things, again, that sort of worked for us, some things that haven't worked for us and that we can improve on. And look forward to getting some great feedback from folks here as well. Obviously, the game day experience can vary wildly depending on, we talked about earlier, the size of your staff, personnel, also facility or facilities. I know at VIU, we've got quite an old gym that's actually on its second roof. Our first roof was an inflatable roof that deflated and fell down when it got snow on it. which I bring up just to say, yes, those stereotypes about Vancouver Islanders are true. We have no clue how to deal with snow. All right, so let's. I want to talk first about years and years ago. There actually was a similar kind of breakout to this, where a bunch of us in the Pac West got together with some youth sports schools and asked about how can you improve our game day experience. And basically, every single school said, get a beer garden. So that could be the end of my talk, and I could stop now. But I know at VIU we actually don't have some licensing available in our gym, so. Moving on from that, if those folks who are lucky enough to do so keep up with that. I should probably also quickly mention sort of my context to this. So I'm in my second year in sports information, but the longtime PA announcer over at VIU. So I've sort of been right there at the court level, seeing how the game experience goes on. And when I first was starting out, I thought it was sort of funny to say things like the opposing players' names really slowly, or maybe play like Frank Sinatra's "Love and Marriage" during the opposing team's volleyball hitting warm-up sort of thing. But since I've come around to sort of say, you know what, putting on a show that benefits all of the student athletes, yours and the other teams, it's more likely to be a more professional presentation, and honestly more likely to get other folks to come to your school, take in the game day. And really, we love having lots of road fans come up, make the noise, challenge your home fans. So really to encourage both sides is something we really try to do. Talking about the game day experience with the facility, so one of the things that we need to improve a lot on is, I know in the retail world, called that decompression zone. So when you're walking into the gym and you go from the outside into the gym, what can you make that do to look like a place of reverence, that you're walking into a spot of athletic excellence? As mentioned, we have not done a good job at VIU with that. You walk in, you see some really nice recycle bins, 2 vending machines, and a wall of fame that's about 6 inches away from being a floor of fame. So right now we're sort of working on getting that all set down, making sure lines of people can get in, get their tickets, get their concessions, move forward in a sort of more orderly manner, just to set things up for a better experience moving forward. One of the best examples I saw of this was going down to a game at Portland State, which again, much bigger game day staff there, but they had set it up with an actual red carpet when you walked in the gym doors. They had their cheer team lined up on both sides of the red carpets, waving the pom-poms. Just again, having that first setup as you first walk through the door is something that was really exciting. Moving from there, I know a lot of other schools will have awards, banners, that sort of things set up. So yeah, see how you can, if you haven't done that already at your school, see how you can set that intro area up to really make that decompression zone, again, a sort of point of reverence. A quick thing for soccer, outdoor soccer here. We didn't do much in the way of sound, of music or anything. I'll talk more about sound in a bit, but now we always we lug some big speakers down there and make sure music is going an hour before game time. Not just, of course, for warm up for the teams, but again, as you think about the parents, the fans that are pulling up outside, the first thing to get out of their car, or the bus or the SkyTrain or whatever, you hear that sound coming in. Okay, yeah, this is something a little bit larger than life you're walking into, so make sure to set that up there. I was talking about some creatives, game day programs. We sort of do some basic game day programs. We used to print a bunch, not so much anymore. Now we sort of do some small print offs just for the first fans that show up, but now we'll do digital versions of those, and we just have a few QR codes that are printed out on forms and banners at certain points when you enter into the gym, so folks can get those on their phone. We just had feedback. Again, you get in there, number 20 is doing really well. I want to know who that is. What's their backstory? Is it a new player, or who's learning about the other rosters? So game day programs, we've identified it's an important thing to do. So we've worked with our communications department to help put those together, but also been happy to look at other schools as well. Holland College is a big one where they put their sort of game day program / magazine online, and we've stolen some good info from there as well. Obviously, with that game day programs, great way to show some love to your key supporters and sponsors there as well. Inside of our gym, we've got 2 scoreboards. We don't have, we'd love to have a video screen. We would just love to have a video screen. Don't have that. However, we did actually go on Amazon, and I swear it's the only purchase we haven't done from a Canadian provider, and purchased a large, probably about 20-foot tall inflatable screen. which we will set up for key games. We've used them for CCAA championships. Not only does it do a great job of hiding the ugly back corner of our gym, but we use that to use a rear projection, put on graphics. So for volleyball, for instance, who's serving, information on their year, their nationality, hometown, this sort of thing. Just a nice little thing that people can get a snapshot and reminded of what's going on with the players. For the national championships, we use that for both teams, not just obviously just the home team as would for VIU games to give. So we see another way to support and show off the student athletes. For basketball, we'll use that, who's doing free throws, great play comes up, that sort of thing. And also a great way during timeouts to put on either a sponsor mention or this sort of thing. I will stay lastly in terms of visuals. One thing's that a question there, to use a projector. Yes, there is a rear projector that we use behind the inflatable screen to work with that. To be honest, the contrast on this one's not great, so we do have to work with it a bit to try to make it as viewable as possible, but it's not too bad. You don't have the contrast as you would from a proper video, like a monitor or a screen, but certainly does the trick and looks pretty good. Again, when I mentioned you walk into that gym, the first thing you see is a 12-foot tall, your starting setter out there in the corner. It looks pretty good and sets it up really well. When I mentioned one more quick thing about visuals, one of the things I sort of got trained in a previous life as a musician was that when you're doing a stage show, it's always good to know what your point of focus should be at all times. So I mentioned when I got to the game at Portland State, they actually had the whole game completely scripted out to every single little timeout, what's going to be this, and maybe some of you are doing that as well. We don't do a full game script, but I think it is important to think about when there's a timeout, do you just have dead space? Or how else can you engage your crowd? Whether it's folks going out and doing contests, throwing some merch into the crowd, whether it is having a screen where you can put up either announcements for next game day, sponsors, this sort of thing. Think about what it is your audience is looking at during those downtimes, so you're not just concentrating on the in-game action. All right, just going to mention a quick thing here about audio. Visuals, of course, tell us what to think. Audio tells you how to feel about it. And so to make an observed example, if say your home team takes a penalty, you get scored on, you're not going to play on the you're not going to play Walking on Sunshine or something along those lines, which completely doesn't match up with the tone and tenor of what's happening. So to really focus on the music you do for in-games, for introductions, we use in-game music for introductions for the road team as well, again, to sort of keep boosting that energy up. And yeah, just make sure you've got music that matches every sort of element that can happen through there. For myself as the PA announcer, so I've gone through and acquired a lot of music for that, but discussion's a good thing. I know at Camosun, I think I saw Corey on there before. Yeah, they've got a bunch of playlists lined up on Spotify. Also, Kayla from the ACAC mentioned they've got a conference set of playlists through Spotify. So for teams that might not have been able to collect enough music for your game days, the conference has got that all set in there. I will just say that even though sometimes Spotify will say music is clean, it might not be. So take the time to go through those songs and make sure everything is appropriate on there. Just aligned with that, two things. So from a production point of view, make sure the speakers you've got in your gym can do a really, oh nice, there's the ACAC Spotify playlist there in the chat. One thing to do, check out how your speakers, at VIU we started out, we had 2 speakers on the end of each team bench, which was horrible because it was too low, and often the opposing team, usually College of the Rockies, would go and turn the speaker away or actually unplug the speakers. Now at our gym, we've got music speakers lined up on the back wall, a lot of nice bass boost off the back wall, as well as separate speakers over the bleachers, so the PA announcer does not sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. That's the aux cord. So yeah, so if there's a way to sort of set up and improve the speaker system, huge impact on your game day thing there. Also, we do encourage fans to make noise. One of the best things we did was get a bunch of garbage cans, turn them upside down, give people some wooden bats, and go to town. Real simple, makes great noise. I know the Lakeland crew that came into our national volleyball championships recently, they all went to Canadian Tire and bought a whole bunch of garbage cans in the green color, and they'll be taking those back and using them, I believe. I'm seeing the nod there, yeah. So we'll be using those, and just a wonderful way just to get that noise up and encourage that to happen. I know we're sort of get close to the running out the end of the time here, so just a few other quick things. Consider your live stream broadcast also an extension of your game day experience. Often, not only for, obviously you want a good experience for people watching at home, but if show crowd shots, show, try to get different camera angles that show the game day experience in your facility as well. That will hopefully encourage folks then to come out to a game if they can. Yes, the music department, discarded drums, paint them team colors. That is a great idea. I know that with the Pac West, there were some sort of some policies about when sort of say artificial noisemakers can happen during play, or things that might be electric. So double check on that, but really good idea. And also, of course, getting another department on your campus involved. Speaking of partnerships, that's another thing that's really helped our game day experience, whether with our VIU Students Union. We didn't have a great connection with them for a long time. Now we do. So they do a lot of promotions for us. They've set up a student supporter area that brings in a lot of students that get dressed up and have a very good time. It probably doesn't hurt that our VIU student pub is about 40 steps away from the gym, so they get some great tailgating activities going on there. So again, stuff outside of the action that still gets people riled up and gets that game day experience in there. We also have a lot of partnerships with elementary school teams, high school teams, youth club sport teams. We will get free admission for them to come in and cheer on and make a lot of noise. They do a great job. And the one thing we did with that for national championships was also to get some of these youth teams to basically adopt a team. So every team coming through, we're guaranteed to have 20 to 30 really engaged, really loud supporters that came in to make sure they all had support there at the championships. The last thing I'll quickly say here, it's basically consider every element of your game production going into the game day experience. So for instance, your scoring table. If your scoring table's making repeated mistakes on filling out the score sheets, and no, we got to stop the game, call the ref, that impacts how that's done. If your concession stand is not staffed properly and there's long lineups and people are getting annoyed, that impacts the game day experience. So really consider how everything can tie in. And at the end of the day, if you're doing stuff to serve your coaches well, to serve your student athletes well, to serve the road student athletes well, and then eventually your fans, it's all going to come together to one really cohesive package. And again, that people are going to want to come back to again and again. All right, that's it for me. Any questions or any comments from Ryan or Brandon at CCAA?
I just threw in the chat a link to, was it Shaw TV produced it, Matt?
Oh, yes.
The VIU game day experience. Please wait till we're done here today. But yeah, it's a great, I don't know, 4-minute clip on the VIU game day experience.
Long story short, I mentioned how sometimes you don't know what's going to happen at the downtimes in games. Well, I don't know if it's ADHD or what, but I guess I get scared of silence. So as the announcer, I've picked up beatboxing. I also play an organ, sort of. I love that Montreal Forum style. So anyways, going on there, and some Jay-Z clips and that sort of stuff. So it's, yeah, I guess I didn't address that because I'm a little bit shy, but yeah, if you can get a PA announcer, obviously is a huge part to the game day experience through info controlling, that sort of stuff. But also a reminder, of course, the student athletes, they are the show. So don't tread on them. Like I said, if you can fill some of that space in between game action, keep people entertained, absolutely go for it. But yeah, we like to definitely say, the student athletes are the show and give them the respect that they deserve.
I did have one follow-up question, Matt, just about, you mentioned bringing in the younger students. Do you do anything for fan engagement during downtimes or half times, breaks in play, that kind of thing, with people that are actually in the stands?
Yeah, we've done a number of things over the years. So there are, obviously your classic t-shirt cannon giveaways. Haven't had any injuries resulting from that yet. We do have some things too, where obviously a lot of youth teams, we have a really great engaged Island Swish youth basketball club program. So often getting them to either do contests, 3-point contests, layup contests, mini games, of course, is a classic thing in between there. So yeah, I think that's great too, to get a lot of these youth teams in there, not just to watch, but to be active, to take a part in the whole game, get some used to being on campus, and you've kind of got fans for life. We've even done some things on soccer team too. We did get that one, the bubble soccer, where people can get in and basically pretend to want to kick a soccer ball because they just want to run into each other, and it's probably a big liability at the end of the day. But fans love it, and fans get a big kick out of it. And again, youth teams, they obviously bring their parents, and it's to keep that action, to keep something always happening in front of us, in front of the fans, is definitely something to aim towards.
Matt, do you have a ballpark idea of, I guess, setup time and cost for the inflatable projection screen?
I should probably see if I thought I saw our AD Danielle on here who might know. It was honestly, in terms of buying it, again, this was one of those Amazon purchases, a lot cheaper actually than we expected. The big thing about the screen is because it's an inflatable, so it has to be tied down to an air compressor, which is a little bit loud. So in a smaller gym might be a little bit distracting. Ours not too bad, though. Someone didn't tie it down properly once and did it deflate mid game, which was a good bit of comedy. But honestly, it wasn't too much. And then we just have one staff member who's back there, of course, on the laptop with the projector, switching between whether it's servers or again sponsor ads or that sort of thing. So a bit of resources, but honestly, I think it was a couple $100 from what I remember. $600. There we go. Jamie's in the chat there. Oh, David, thank you for the nice comment. Cheers.
Are there any other questions for Matt?
Robert's got his hand up there.
Oh, sorry.
I just also recommend if you're running a bouncy castle off the same breaker as the game day table that you don't blow a fuse 5 minutes before game time. So just lessons to learn.
That's actually is a really good point about on even breakers and that sort of stuff. We had Shaw in to do a trial game before 2 weeks before national championships, and we had, long story short, everything plugged into one area, and totally the whole Shaw production truck went down 2 minutes before game time. So yeah, panic attack big time. So a very good point on if you are bringing in big screens, you are bringing in big speakers. Yeah, keep them on separate electrical circuits than all the essential game day stuff you need.
And Matt, since you mentioned Danielle, we should congratulate Danielle on being recognized as the CCAA Athletic Director of the Year. I saw Lexi from Lethbridge, CCAA Innovation Award recipients from this season, and Providence University College for this service award. So congratulations to those 3 schools, or 2 schools and individual. So now we'll pass things off to Satbir Singh from Mohawk, and Satbir is going to be talking about photography and videography.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Happy to be here. And unfortunately, I have to follow Matt, and that was a great presentation. So hopefully I can do as well as he did. So I'm probably going to touch more on videography than photography, because I think that's something new that everyone's trying to start to incorporate into their social media, or even if you have TV screens around your facility and you want to play some cool highlight videos. That's something we do. We have TV screens right behind our front desk, and we have some of our highlights playing there. So when people walk in, they get to see that stuff and know that there's some varsity games they can come to and enjoy, if, you know, because we have community memberships for our fitness center. So getting those community people to see our game highlights, kind of engage them that way, is always great. Obviously with photography and videography, it's, again, I mentioned, it's not just about social media, it's content you might just need in-house, your athletic banquet, posters, banners around the facility. So capturing what you need for those is always important. So this is my second year, or I just wrapped up my second year at Mohawk College as the sports info coordinator. And one of my biggest goals was to start implementing video content and making videos. Obviously, sometimes if you're just capturing things on your phone and building reels through that, it doesn't take as long. But some of those bigger videos that you might do, it's really time consuming. If you can get your department to fund a camera, good for you, that helps. For us, we are lucky enough to find some students around campus that just enjoy making videos. So I'm just trying to look at my notes here. Yeah, so one of the hiccups we actually encountered this year for videography was we have a obviously regular camera that you can use, but it's not great for videography. So when we hired our first videographer, he had the skills, he just didn't have the video equipment. And he was a broadcast student, and with our broadcast program, they can, you know, rent or borrow some equipment through there, but he got rejected, saying it was only allowed for course projects. So we had to unfortunately let go of that videographer, and we landed on a new guy who was a massage therapy student. So you can find these skilled students who have hobbies like this anywhere on campus. It just sometimes they just land in your lap, and it's really awesome. And the content this videographer made for us was spectacular, to say the least. We actually introduced a new award at our banquet this year for our sports info media students, and he won it and received a standing ovation from our athletes. It was one of the coolest things at our banquet. But going into the actual content now, my goal going into this past year was to do one video a year, or sorry, one video a week, kind of like a top 10, top 5 plays of the week type of thing, similar to what you would see on Sports Center. But when I started working with this student and he showed me kind of the content he made with Orangeville Prep, it's a prep basketball school. He was doing reels with very cool transitions, and that was his skill set. So despite me having a plan of what I wanted to see, for me, it was allowing him to, do what he was good at, and then working with him to kind of grow the rest of his skill set, especially it's a student, it's not a freelance videographer who has 5-10 years of experience doing this types of stuff. So kind of letting him settle in, do what he was good at, and those reels took off. I will share some links later on, or I can send them via email to show the videos we were making. It was really his skill set that took off, and I just kind of let him grow from there. And they were our best posts on social media. Each game, it was men's basketball played on a Saturday, or women's basketball. He would have those videos ready to go for the week, and we'd post, making sure all our teams were getting the equal coverage. Our videographer understood this, but sometimes you might need to relay this to students, is about capturing everything. It's not just the game highlights that make the video, it's those bench shots after a massive dunk or a three, getting that stuff included, getting your coaches timeouts, the crowd, athletes warming up, people entering the gym type of things, capturing all that. This goes into photography as well, really enhances that content for you. And also makes everyone feel special, because obviously you have some student athletes who are not going to play as often as others. So making sure they get included and making a team thing really makes it something that our student athletes are talking about when I'm around them. They're like, that was really cool, that bench shot was awesome. So just capturing that and discussing that with your videographers and photographers is really important. Be careful with the music that might be attached to the videos. I made this mistake, and I noticed 20 minutes later that one of the songs was not clean. So before you post, kind of just make sure you're paying attention to the language that might be used if you're using especially copyrighted music, things kids are into these days. But you don't necessarily also need a videographer. Some of the content we made was captured on our phones, and you can make regular reels. Something I actually noticed is just clipping highlight videos from game film really worked and was really engaging on our social media accounts. So just going off that, like now, like in the summertime, it's slow and there's not much content for a videographer to really make and share out there. So I've kind of just started clipping highlight video or highlights from this past season. So I would take a half court shot that our athlete made, and luckily we had 2 clips for that. We had it from the broadcast, and we also had archived footage of our videographer capturing that, and we kind of put those videos together and made it a post, and it was super engaging and gave everyone kind of a different look at the half court shot. So there was the regular broadcast camera, and then you have a corner angle. So having those different angles is really engaging as well. I've found that really works. So my suggestion though for myself and maybe for everyone is if you do want to start posting some highlight clips, and if it's not during the game and it's not, after the game, and it's something you want to start using in the summer, is writing down or clipping them during the season and just having them archived. So this year I didn't have that ready. So now I'm going back into our archived game film and looking for this stuff, because I remember it happened, but I just don't know when it happened. So just being prepared with that really helps as well. So I want to go back to how I talked about the reels that worked for us, and the transitions and the highlights that worked. Once our videographer got used to things like that, we had him kind of come to our media day. He actually took some videos of our women's basketball athletes getting their photos taken, and he built some cool transitions and a nice cool video, and we ended up using it as a promotional reel for our CCAA nationals that we hosted this past year. We actually did a video reflecting the career of our men's basketball head coach, who retired after, I think it was 17 or 18 seasons. So there was like now interviews being put into this. So we showed kind of our student athletes talking about what the coach meant to them, and then kind of adding those highlights behind them, like having the audio overlay of them talking and the highlights. So we kind of started engaging into different types of videos as well. So going into photography, again, we at Mohawk are very lucky to have a student photography program. So we hire 2 students each year. For my first 2 years, I had the same students, so I got lucky. So hopefully I can find the same talent going into this next year, looking for a couple new people to fill that position. I'm going to first start with nationals and what we did there and what worked for us. If anyone ever ends up, hosting a national tournament or a provincial tournament, we stuck with our 2 student photographers, but then we hired 1 freelance photographer. And the way we worked were 2 of those photographers would work each game, but we'd have 3 of them working the medal games and at the national banquet. So we had, for the big stuff, we would have all 3 working. And the way we did it was we assigned 1 photographer to each team. And then if we had that third photographer was assigned to getting the behind the scenes footage. And I talked about it with the videography. You want to capture everything. Going back to like when I came to Mohawk, our most recent really engaging fan photos were from when we hosted the 2015 nationals event. So I didn't have any recent crowd shots. So knowing what you need is really important. So if you're missing, an assistant coach is about to win a big award, or be named as a head coach for a club team, and you want to put that out there as a congratulations, ensuring your photographers are getting those photos of your assistant coaches. Again, everything really, really helps. Not just the social media content, but any future things you might be posting, or any news related content you might need photos for. So again, going back to nationals, the freelance photographer was who took the lead. He worked with our students. He actually helped them get better, provided advice. So having someone like that, if you can find a freelance photographer, that's great. That can really engage with the students and help grow your platform. That's awesome to have, because he kind of just ran with it, and I didn't really have to oversee him too much. He would work with them on the editing process, and we would have photos up right away after games, even if it was just 10 photos, just so I'll say VIU was there. If they needed to pick up a photo for a game story, they had like 5 photos to choose from, and then we would upload the remaining 40 or whatever number of photos you captured. We would upload those later. Talked about something I said capture everything. Grabbing your broadcast crew, getting photos of them, your game day crew. You never know when you need these photos. You don't want to capture, you don't want to have 200 photos of the broadcast crew, but end up getting a few. You never know when you might need something like that. Use that as a promotion for, getting people to tune into your live stream. It's always good to have. Going into that, from a personal point, for photography, we did buy, like I mentioned, we bought a camera for our office. If any of our photographers were not available, we had it ready to go. I recommend, if you have any spare, like rare time where you're not doing anything, running around during game days, grab the camera, take some shots, practice some videography with it. If it's not your skill set, I know some people are great at photography. Some people already have that videography skills, but if you don't, it's always great to find some time to kind of play with the camera. It might not be photos you ever use. It might not be video content you ever use, but at least you're building something where if your photographers don't end up showing up on a game day, you have that skill set to take some photos that you can use. And when you do capture everything, it becomes great social media content. We had one of our cross country athletes sliding in the snow. I think this was at CCAA championships, and just posting something like that allows, I know we're getting into social media a little bit later, but it's just those types of photos are really engaging as social media content. I also found that, and I stole this from the Blue Jays Instagram account, that something they do really well is their post will be a photo from the game or a final score graphic, and then they'll have videos attached as the next few slides. I tested that out, and is actually one of our most engaging posts as well. So we had footage of our women's volleyball team winning a bronze medal, their final point, but we also had some photos of them celebrating. So I tied that all in together, and obviously a medal winning post is going to be some of your best posts, but having both photography and videography really tie in together really well as social media content. Provide your videographers with credit. That's really, really good. I found they appreciate it, and it really helps you grow that relationship with them. When they're doing this stuff for you, obviously they're getting paid, but the pay only goes so far if they're students trying to grow their portfolio. So really understanding, finding out what their Instagram account might be, give them the credit where it's due. They also end up establishing relationships with your student athletes. Our videographers started doing some reels for some of our student athletes on the side, and that was perfectly fine, and it was great to see. Going forward, actually, this past December, I made a trip out to LSU, and I kind of hung out with their sports info person who runs men's basketball. Kind of got to overshadow them, and one of the things they did, and I plan to implement it this year with us, is having a weekly meeting with that sports info group. So your videographers, your graphic designer, kind of having that weekly meeting and discussing what might be coming up during the week, or maybe even looking ahead further for game day experience, for planning on doing some themed events, like theme games. Okay, so like what photos does our graphic designer might need from our videographer? Okay, the game is, I don't know, we're having a community game in 2 weeks. What can we do to capture that to use on a graphic to promote it? Or how can we create an engaging video that is promotional? Going off that, something, again, I mentioned knowing what you need to capture. So at the OCAA championships, we knew our men's basketball coach was going to retire. Team ends up winning a bronze, but we also knew the coach had a really tight relationship with one of our star players. They, during the 4 years he played for us, it was a really close-knit relationship. And late in the game, being up big, well, our athlete was actually injured, so we put him in for 1 second just to get that one last moment for him as a college athlete. So what we did was, we knew once he came, he was going to come off before the buzzer went. A nice little substitution, get him a round of applause from the audience. We knew there was going to be a moment between the head coach and the athlete. So the photographer was ready to capture that moment, and it was really cool to have. And now we have it archived. We've used it to share. Just knowing what's coming up. If it's a milestone, a record breaker, we're going to use, again, that meeting will be like, I can be like, hey, this athlete is about to have, about to break the career 3-point record. Let's make sure we capture that on video. He's 2 away, so we know he just has to hit 2 more threes, or capture the moment of them celebrating him breaking that record is really important. But also from a videography, just going back to videography standpoint, our plan is to keep growing that, kind of create a network either through YouTube or something like that, where we can do some engaging things. Again, I'm a Blue Jays fan, so I'm going to keep going back to their social media page, but they just did a recent Father's Day video where they're the players gave themselves a scouting report as a father. Obviously, not a lot of students will be fathers, so that's not the content we'd go for, but it's an engaging video that you can do, kind of, how well do you know your teammate videos, cool interview stuff with our athletes as well, just to kind of grow that network and provide different types of content. Because yes, the same highlight reels, although different highlights, can kind of, you do see the drop off once you start posting the same thing over and over again, although albeit from other different games. So you kind of want to start building that, or we want to start building that platform where we're posting different types of videos as well. And from that is really all I have.
Are there any questions for Sapir? Yeah, Brandon?
Yeah, I have more of a comment, I guess, on something that Sapir said, and I saw Mariah posted in there about a list just about capturing everything. I guess from a selfish standpoint, the CCAA, we have 99 member institutions. I would say maybe a third of them don't have somebody to do this type of role. I know capturing opponents through videography might be tough, but if you can capture pictures of your opponents, I know it's not something traditionally anybody would do. But when we're putting together marquee matchups or Rodney's working on the rankings, there's schools that have zero content to use, and we end up going to schools like the Mohawks and VIUs because we know they're going to have photos of those opponents. So it's just something to think about, that maybe your conference is looking for it, the CCAA is looking for it. We have teams that attend the national championships and don't have anything besides a team photo to provide, and hosts often want to do something creative, and we don't have that content. So yeah, just on Sapir's comment about capturing everything, maybe even some of your opponents, a star player or something like that, would be beneficial too.
I'll add to that, and this is probably more for OCAA schools, since those are our more consistent opponents. We actually had our photographers take at least 5 photos of our opponents especially early on in the regular season. If someone did reach out to me and from another school and you guys needed a photo, and you wanted to have that on your game story, especially that first or second game, you don't have the new photos, and you don't really want to go back and start using last year's photos. So we do something like that. I've been asked once, but it's just cool to have. And if it is something guys want to share, please do reach out, and I'll make sure our photographers keep doing that.
Sapir, do you have any advice on capturing for different platforms or different, I guess, intended uses of video? So landscape, reels or portraits, and then obviously ideally square for Instagram wall posts.
From a video standpoint, I think highlights are best used as reels. So if you're going to make a highlight video, reels are really engaging, but anything that was interview style or promotional for us, we did the more rectangle, regular sized videos, so they could be used on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. But with those, the one thing we did was we wouldn't use any copyrighted music on those ones, because at least on Instagram, maybe I'm wrong, someone can fill me in, and I've been doing this wrong the whole time. I know on Instagram you can credit music through there and mute the Instagram song that you're using and put the volume up for this song from your video, if that made any sense. But from Twitter, you can't really credit the song, so we would use non-copyrighted music on that. But yeah, for videos, that's what worked for us. Photography, we don't do anything too different. It's more for graphics. We use the square content, and usually it works. A regular photo works on all social media platforms. Maybe someone else can provide better content on that, but we haven't done anything different. Maybe it's something I can start, challenging our student photographers to do. I don't really use many vertical photos. I'm more of the horizontal guy myself, so that's just a perfect personal preference, though.
Matt?
Yeah, just a question about preseason photography. Obviously, we all need to get our team photos and our headshots, but is there anything that anyone, I'd open up anyone, would give sort of feedback on what's worked really well in terms of whether it's some particular pose photos, candid photos, or particular ways of doing headshot photos that might have been really effective or impactful, I guess I should say.
If I can jump in, we when we're doing our headshot or our BD days, we give 3 to 5 standard poses that we want our student athletes to do, and then we sort of leave time at the end for them to fill in with creativity, because they all have a best friend on the team, so they might want to do, like last year we had someone fake proposing to one of their friends on the team. It was kind of fun, and then a couple of our international student athletes brought in their flags from their home countries, and so that makes for good posts as well. So just little things like that.
We typically do 2 versions, one on like our branded backdrop and then one just on a plain white backdrop. Just makes it a lot easier for cutting out. You don't get the shadows, or the shadows you do get aren't quite to the extent that you would get, especially with darker hair on dark backdrop. Or my hair would blend in with the red backdrop. So yeah, we just found that has made things move along a little bit quicker when we're trying to cut images out. All right, thanks, Sapir. So we'll move on to our final presenter, Robert Murray from Keanu College. He's going to talk about social media.
Hey everyone, my name is Rob Murray, and I'd like to start off by showing my background, which is a photo of our 2 futsal champions together. Hopefully our other AC people see that. So welcome to how to gain 20,000 social media followers and crush social media overnight. Just joking. You're not going to do that, and try not to expect that, I guess, that you're going to suddenly be some sort of viral sensation in the market you're in. But it doesn't have to stop you from trying. And so my name is Rob Murray. I have previous experience working for the newspaper in town here, the Fort McMurray Today, which allowed me to sort of gain a perspective of Keanu Huskies athletics beforehand. I also have experience with the WHL, the International Olympic Committee, Rugby Canada, and a couple other organizations. Just in regards to social media best practices, the thing you have to consider most, I guess, these days at least, is before posting, consider if something could be considered an ist or an ism, if it could be considered racist or sexism or something like that from some perspective. So you always have to keep that perspective open. And if you ever feel like you're, I guess, in that area that you might be some sort of gray area, you can talk to someone or consult. So never, social media is not really a standalone job, despite it being me who's the only one posting. It's a collaborative effort throughout our organization that someone says, hey, I have this idea, what about this? And I say, well, that might work, what about this? And then we sort of get to the end point as well with that. Understanding when to plan and when to be off the cuff. So when you come to a game day, you go into a game day where you have maybe 4 teams competing, 6 teams competing, because you're not only thinking about the teams competing at home, you're thinking about the teams competing on the road. And you want to consider what you're planning for each team and how it's going to be equal, because if women's basketball sees something that men's volleyball gets, and women's volleyball sees something that men's basketball gets that they don't get, they might start to say, well, does this organization have my interests in line? So you want to ensure that from at least that perspective, you're keeping things as equal as you can be, and you're planning for, on a game day, I'm going to do these 5 things guaranteed, and this is going to help sort of advance our game day and then our coverage of our teams overall. The other thing is that capturing important moments. So you have to realize that when you may not always get the shot, or you might miss something photography or videography wise, that's okay if you miss it, but it's ensuring that you sort of capture it some other way, whether it's clipping it afterwards from the web stream or things like that. Knowing your market, we're going to get into that a little bit as well, and then aligning with organizational and institutional values from your college or from what your athletic department really wants to get. And then constant communication with coaches, athletic directors, and student athletes, because the social media is a reflection of not only the people we have on this call today, but it's a reflection of our 160 student athletes, our 6 coaches, our athletic director, the recreation staff, when they're out throughout town. And then trying to understand your student athletes and how you communicate with them. And then the last goal is to be a little stupid, but not a lot stupid. So getting into knowing your market, and I just have my laptop off to the side here, so just bear with me. Keyama College is a rural town. It's heavy in the oil industry, energy. Our closest ACA school is 300 kilometers away by which is one-way trip, and then our longest road trip is over 1,000 kilometers. So it's understanding that when we're not in downtown Toronto, right? We're an endpoint, we're not a through point for people. So if we want to recruit people internationally from Australia, from the Netherlands, from England, we have to sort of get ourselves out there and get our message through social media to sort of build that connection. And through that, our coaches can kind of show examples of, this is what we're about, this is what we do, these are our facilities, and this is how we sort of bridge that gap, because our coaches aren't going to England on recruiting trips anytime soon. So consider who you're in as well. So in our market, consider who you're competing against in town. So in our town, which is Fort McMurray, we compete against junior A hockey and high school sports. But for some place like Calgary or Lethbridge, you're competing against the WHL. In Calgary, you're competing against the NHL, more or less. You're competing against youth sports schools. So just understanding that what market you're in, who you're trying to reach, and that sort of thing. So because our travel is so far away, we plan some of our content for our traveling teams against around our travel. So what I did was I found an old camera that we had this year, and I gave it to our women's volleyball team to take photos and take old video on the road. So when they went down to Lethbridge, they were holding around a point and shoot camera, which was not equipped at all to do any sort of quality coverage, but it gave kind of a vintage feel that ended up performing really well. And the ACAC kind of jumped in on that, which was really nice. When we come time for road trip questions, so we poll our student athletes now and then. We try to keep it fun and light. So we ask them about like road trip snacks, who's the first person to fall asleep on the bus, that sort of things. And coincidentally, you guys can do it as well if you're making a long road trip up somewhere, like ECAC schools coming up to play us. So we also try and keep it professional as well. So thanking our bus company, because they're Diversified is a big company in Fort McMurray. They do all the travel out to the oil sands. So we try to put that out there that we're thanking them for getting us home safe and that sort of stuff whenever they leave on a trip or when they come home on a trip, because that's so important as well, because we've had bus incidents as well that are very sort of, I guess, heightened. For planning versus being off the cuff, you have the previous stuff that I talked about in terms of game days, lineups, game day graphics, final scores. It's always important that you post something about winning or losing, regardless of what you do, because it's important that if you're starting the conversation, that you end the conversation, and that, maybe you just post the final score and you don't have to put any sort of commentary behind it. You can just say final or things like that. I know I've hated posting final scores before, especially for basketball, but that's just sort of what you have to do sometimes. Think about the content outside the final score and think about your road games as well. So we've done everything from dunks, buzzer beaters, the first volleyball point of the season, soccer goals, dangles. It's about understanding that sport and understanding the big moments. I have a couple of links I'm going to share with you guys. So this is a reel that we put together that I sort of clipped through ACAC TV. And I know Anthony's on the call, but the quality isn't that great on ACAC TV sometimes. And the quality of the reel itself wasn't that great, but it celebrated a big moment. And it was part of a weekend sweep for a women's basketball team. So it was a really big moment that was really worth sharing and worth celebrating. Especially more so because this player might not be back in the program next year, and you never know when someone's last game might be. So it was really important. This post ended up performing really well, that we got a chance to celebrate moments. And even though they were hundreds of kilometers away, we got a chance to build that extra gap and show that student athlete and that team that we cared about them. You can also have fun with social media. So I like to be really devious and kind of stretch the limits of the ACAC social media policy, as I'm sure some of our ACAC compatriots know. So this is one I did right before we played Olds College at men's volleyball. And those of you who don't know who Felicia Rodney is, she played for Olds for a number of years, and she was like a soccer all-star for them. And then she joined our program. So I got a video of her saying, let's go Huskies, let's go, right before we were about to play Olds at men's volleyball. It was it didn't break any social media rules. We were just sort of cheering for our team, but people at Olds and people at Canada knew what we were sort of doing. It can also be you can also do like a lot of simple things with social media. So National Donut Day is another one of those things where it doesn't really apply to our organization, but I still found a number of different stats where we featured the number 0, whether it was our team shutting out another team in a soccer game or things like that. There really is sort of no limit. You can just try to find days like this and then sort of relate it to your brand as much as possible. That sort of has to be the tie-in fact. Like donuts really don't have place in athletics, but you can ultimately tie it into your brand. Communications with coaches and student athletes. So going to practices whenever possible is really important. It shows them that you're sort of there, not just for the wins and the losses on the games. You're not just there for game day. You're there sort of through all those sort of trials that they go through, because they're not limited to their practices. They're not limited to their games either. Talk with them in the halls. You'll see them in the community from time to time. So we do a number of community visits, and I'm always there taking photos and videos, and I make sure to chat with them as well. It's also important that you sort of connect with alumni, because they sort of feed off the social media. They sort of see what's going on with the program as well. This is one of the examples from practices that turned out really well for us. And it was actually, this video was taken when I was headed home, but I just decided to stop into women's volleyball practice for a second and take a quick video and post it online. And I think it's nearing 40,000 views right now, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, but it's kind of fun as well. And if you're going to be at those practices as well, it's important to show up for the games and the big moments as well, which is something I did here with James Bartha, who was one of our futsal players, and he scored a big goal against SAIT during the men's futsal championships. And so I went and cut it from 3 different angles, like was talking about. This was sort of important for us to showcase, and it was great to show off our video program as well. And it allowed us to sort of advertise with Playside as well, who was a new partner for us. At the end of the day as well, you have to make sure that whatever you're doing is sort of signed off on by your athletic director, or I guess the athletics managers, like we have as well. So you'll be in constant communication with them, and their answer to everything might just be to make things go viral or to make your magic happen. And it's not always that simple, I guess, but if you make them realize sort of what's realistic and what's not realistic, you can help sort of bridge that gap for people who might not be always social media inclined. This is one of the things as well that we also did with, it wasn't necessarily a collab with Northwest Polytechnic, but we had one of our student athletes going to play against her sister, and it was one of the final times I think they would ever play against each other. So we made sure to get a picture, and we shared that from the Huskies channels. And not only did it perform well on our channels, but it sort of leaked into Grand Prairie's market as well, because they're both from there. One of the biggest things in knowing your market is also for your student athletes as well. So when I sort of took stock and I came into this role, I noticed a lot of our student athletes were basically on Instagram and Instagram only. They were on Facebook as well, but not as much. And Twitter was basically non-existent, which is why you don't see us post there much. One of the biggest things I did to try and enhance that was the creation of our Giphy account, which now has over 4.5 million plays. And this was sort of something I started by myself and continue to maintain. And I made some Instagram stickers. So if you ever go on your phone, you can search the Kano Huskies on Instagram and you'll get some Giphies that'll pop up. And it sort of enhances the ability to make your post and make it sort of shine as well, which is kind of nice as well. Yeah, and then it's important that you're not only, I guess, having fun, but you're also celebrating the big moments as well. So we recently had one of our men's basketball players, CCAA Player of the Year, Sean Michael Clancy, who signed professionally to play in Portugal. So while we have our fun on like National Donut Day and things like that, we also made sure to put a lot of effort into that post so we could celebrate as well and celebrate that big moment. I know that was a little bit over the place, but does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask?
Oh, I have a comment. Just thank you for all that information, Rob. Just on your comment about being aware of like when your teams are traveling and how you're still posting for them then. That's something like, as for our conference, I really want to raise the level, raise the bar for all of our members to be posting. So if you're unable to kind of post like, oh, my team's away and you can't post about it, maybe they're at Lakeland and Lakeland does a good job of posting. You just have to reshare it. So making sure everyone's kind of on the same page with like sharing those scores. So if you don't have something prepared, you're able to at least share something.
And another thing I did as well is that I basically communicate with our coaches that if you see a big moment, because I won't be watching basketball in Lakeland when I'm at home with volleyball against Lakeland. So if something big happens in that game, send it to me and I'll clip it later so we can get it on social media. Even if it's the next morning, it still has sort of airtime and it's celebrating the program.
I had someone from Olds actually do that and it was awesome. They sent me a video. I can't even remember the school. I think it was like TKU, got a buzzer beater. And they were like, as much as we don't want to send this and like they beat us or whatever, like here, we think the ACAC can use this. So that's really nice to see our members kind of collaborating like that. So that was really good.
I just had a question on team-specific Instagram pages. So are those, I guess we'll start with Keanu here, are those then just led and run by students? And do you have any sort of official oversight or collaboration with them, or how do you let those run?
So I actually run those myself. I do provide the passwords to the coaches, so they have access if they ever want to go in and talk to a recruiter, things like that. But for the most part, it's me, but I do create an open door policy with our students that, you know, if you do have an idea for content, bring it forth and like, let's make sure it's sustainable, that we can do, if we're doing something in August, that we're doing it in March as well, and not just doing it for 1 week, unless it's sort of designed as a one-off post. We have that sort of collaboration that, because it's myself only really, that I can make sure all the accounts sort of work in unison. But if you are dealing with multiple people sort of managing those accounts, I think it's important that you have consistent graphics that they can all use, and then you sort of come up with a uniform posting style as well.
A question kind of along those lines, I guess. I know a few years ago, the whole takeover, the account thing was kind of a cool thing that people were trying, where they give the students and have them, you know, if they're going on a road trip, take that over. Has anyone had issues, I guess, with kind of policing that or managing that where it's gone off the rails? Because Rodney and I were talking about maybe doing that next year with our account, but we're also nervous from a risk management standpoint, you know, turning it over to someone we don't personally know. So Robert, have you, obviously you said you turned some of these team accounts over, so what's kind of your experience there?
Yeah, when I came into Keanu, we had a bit of a mess going on in that we had, I think, 3 different women's soccer accounts, 3 different basketball accounts, but like I sort of judge with our student athletes how to include them in the account without doing maybe a takeover, because I can't always police that, and I kind of have an anxiety about that, I guess, is that they'll do something wrong and then it's on me, obviously. I do try to, sometimes I hand them the phone and say, here, record something, and let them do whatever they want to do. And as long as there's no bad words or anything in it, I just post it for what it is. But yeah, otherwise it's figuring out how to include them, maybe without allowing them to have direct access.
Question about final score graphics. Maybe other people can jump in on this one as well, but if you say have both basketball teams and both volleyball teams playing the same day, are you posting the final scores one at a time, or do you see kind of posting all 4 scores into one post?
So I usually post the final score on the team account, and then if they win, I share it to the main account. And the same thing goes for post game, is that I'll usually share 10 photos from each home game afterwards. And if they win, I'll share that to the main account as well. If they don't win, I'll just keep it on the team account. That way I kind of like just to keep our main account a positive place. But yeah, it's usually because my job involves game day as well. Sometimes I'm helping with takedown on a Saturday afternoon. So my final score might not go out until 3 hours after, and then I'm doing all 4 at once, sort of thing.
Anthony?
Oh, I put in chat there. Would you suggest a team account or a single institution account? So advantages or disadvantages of both from a marketing point.
There is a lot of risk with separate team accounts, but if managed properly, I think it can be a boon for your organization. Think about maybe if you have a good badminton program, but you have you don't have a badminton account, where are those student athletes sort of getting their where they're getting the content from, how are they getting celebrated, that sort of thing. Is there a plan for how you're going to promote them on the main account? Is there enough content to warrant a second account for badminton, that sort of thing? So it's going through that discussion and sort of having that to make sure it can be properly managed. And if you can properly manage it, again, from sort of August to March, then go for it. But if you can't, then you don't need to create so many different accounts.
Just follow up on that. What about from an opponent perspective? So if I'm trying to tag you, especially if from a conference point of view, I might tag, start typing in and like, okay, I don't know if they have 3 or 4 different accounts, or do they have one, and you might miss that. So it's a little bit of a chore for opponents if they're trying to tag you in that.
That's something really good that Kayla did, is that she shared a general Excel sheet with all our social media accounts for different programs. I don't think that went as far as basketball and volleyball. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have sent out reminders to teams sometimes. If I see them take a wrong account, I just sort of send them a reminder privately rather than publicly. I don't think that's sort of something you need to call someone out for, because they might not know. So it's just about, I guess, that education piece.
Kayla?
Yeah, just to touch on like that last point Rob said, just if you are going to have like team accounts, making sure it's a consistent look. And like, for example, so at Keanu, their official is Huskies Athletic Official. I think that's their main athletic account. And then all their sub team accounts have the same name, just abbreviated to their sport. So it's Keanu WBB, Keanu MBB. So it's really easy to find them all. And then their logos in their profile picture are all the same. So it's not like you're not looking for a bunch of different names. Some schools have like their team names are all over the place because they were created years ago. So having that consistency, my one just personal opinion from a conference standpoint is that I would rather see our members do a really, really good job on one athletic page, like one account, and just really excel at that. Like set yourself a goal of 10,000 followers. And then once you're able to like have 10,000 followers, then I would say consider like opening up to team accounts, because you have that following already. Or if you're able to like manage it all and keep it all consistent, then it's fine. But I just think that if you can do a really good job with one account, do that first and then try and open up to all your teams. But that is just my own personal opinion.
So one thing if I can tack on to that, one thing we found with our volleyball accounts especially is that the volleyball community is obviously very huge, and the coaches have been a little bit more committed, I guess, on that side to building those accounts. And there's a huge volleyball community that they sort of engage with, whereas it might not work on a main account as well. So just sort of considering who you're trying to reach as well is kind of important in the sustaining that account.
We have one more question from Ryan, and then we'll move on to the next part.
Hi guys. Yeah, I'm Ryan with Kings. I'm the marketing and athletics coordinator, and really the only one to do anything with marketing here on the athletic side, so it can get pretty busy. And I had to leave for a couple minutes there, so I may have missed this if it was already asked. But what are your thoughts on all your sub pages having a bit of a different style from the main page? So some of our head coaches like to create content and used to, for example, our basketball coaches, and they have a completely different style of content. Every content creator has their own style, their own look, their own fonts they like to use, kind of stuff like that. And some of our pages do follow the main page because I have more of a hand in it. But what are your thoughts on it being like a completely different look versus the main page? Do you think it should all be the same? Should templates just be provided, or kind of let that coach just run wild if he's doing a good job?
I think it's important to sort of assess it, to be honest. Maybe you can suggest different practices. Say instead of posting X, why don't you do Y? And try and sort of find that middle ground. You probably don't want to come in as just being, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and tell them to shut down the account or something, especially if they sort of have that passion for it, because I know not everyone always does. It really just work with the coach and have that sort of communication. And if they admit, hey, I'm not the best at graphics, say, well, why don't we sort of standardize graphics for men's basketball and women's basketball, and then have a standard graphic for men's volleyball and women's volleyball, because it can sometimes be a little bit different in terms of the score you're posting. And then you can kind of find that uniqueness there, or the standardization maybe, and then they can sort of go beyond with, they can do whatever they want without posting a graphic, right? They can post a photo like they're at a tournament or something like that. So that could be the area of creativity that they have.
All right, thanks to excuse me. Thanks to Satbir, Robert, and Matt. We'll turn things over now to Brandon to kind of move on to the second part of our discussion here about working together and collaborating on certain things.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. And I echo Ryan's comments. Thank you to the three. We kind of got word from CSC that we could do something like this on a bit short notice. So we reached out to the three of them. They were all game, put this together kind of quickly for us. So I do appreciate their effort today, and everyone again that kind of attended and contributed. The last thing we want to do, maybe these last 10-15 minutes, was just kind of open it up. I put in the agenda that, you know, I would maybe speak to the national level, Caleb to the conference, and Ryan as the varsity institution level, about how we can maybe work together. We heard several times about collaboration and capturing content, and as I mentioned during the photography section, it's something you know, we sometimes struggle with getting that content outside of national championships. So just we want to open it up and see, you know, what are some ways we could work together more efficiently. So last September, I know it's a crazy time for everybody, I put together an Excel sheet with everybody I had identified from our members as marketing, communication, SID, game day staff type of people. Sent it out. It was very basic. It was names, email addresses, the institutions they belong to. But just having people here today, and Ryan and Kayla and I and Rodney had met previously, maybe there's ways we can do things online to keep those things updated. So whether it's the social media handles, whether it's links to everyone's photography accounts or webcasting sites. So, you know, we'd thrown out some ideas, whether it was through a Google Forms or something through Microsoft. The issue I guess we've run into is that not every conference, not every institution is using the same platform. But I might just turn it over now to Kayla, because she has done some of these things at the ACAC level, and maybe have her walk through what they've tried this season and what's worked and what hasn't. So Kayla, do you mind maybe just telling the group what you've kind of worked on with your institutions?
Yeah, honestly, I just took your guys' idea with that Excel sheet. I did the exact same thing just with our conference. Within that though, we did add where their accounts were at with their following. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, for whoever had it, they kind of put what their following was at. And then we set a goal like in December, I want to be at this many, like I want to grow by this much kind of thing. So it just kind of held a bit more accountability. It was good for me to see like how we're improving. And with that, we just hosted a Zoom meeting with as many of our comms people that could make it. And then that's where we discussed. I'd like to host more of those meetings coming this year. So everyone from the ACAC on that call or on this call, you can expect that. And then I'm trying something. I guess I have to talk to my members here. On Instagram, I just have a group chat with all the members' main account. And so sometimes if I see, oh, I like this idea, I'd love to get this content. And I just kind of put it out to everybody in a group message like, hey, if anyone can get this content, please send it to me. That way all our members see it. I know they're on Instagram, obviously. Or if we're posting something like our EDI video that I would like for all of our members to share, I'll just go on the Instagram chat and say like, can you guys please share this or go engage with it? So those have just been the ways that I've been sort of doing that.
Thanks. So yeah, I think from a conference level, it's probably beneficial. I know not everybody has a Kayla at the conference level. Some, might be lucky to have one staff at that conference level. So if you're a leader within that conference, the things you could maybe initiate something similar. I know Kayla would always be willing to listen and say, hey, here's what we're trying, what we would like to do. Again, I don't know if we at the CCAA level would try to do a broad one for all 99 members, but I would like to keep a working database of who the contacts are and what some of those vital links are. But one thing we presented at our AGM, I guess it was 2 years ago now, was to try and engage with the members a little more outside of national championships. And the way we wanted to do that was via social media. And obviously only with our team sports, only 8 schools out of the 99 are sending teams to those. In some cases, VIU is the representative request at all 6 of those. Hey, can't knock it. So we want to try and discover ways that we can engage with those members that aren't going to the national championships. So, we have things throughout the season, the rankings that Rodney puts out every Tuesday. They drive a little controversy, but they also drive some conversation. So we pitch things to the athletic directors, if your team is one of the 15 in those rankings, can you like those accounts? And again, it was probably the wrong audience. So it's, now that we have kind of this group together, we're wondering same kind of questions though. Can we reach out and request a like if you're featured in the National Scholars List, the Academic All-Canadians, the weekly rankings? Is that overstepping, or is it something we could maybe try and get on everybody's agenda that Tuesday afternoon you're checking out the rankings? If you're featured, you're going to give it a like. And then we also want it to be reciprocal though, and Rodney's done a good job, Kayla's done a good job in this area recently, where if there is a cool story at one of our member institutions, that we're going to try and share it. So Kayla's reached out to Rodney and they've collaborated on a few Instagram posts around the basketball championship at SAIT, around the EDI initiative that ACAC just took. So that's a simple thing where Kayla said, hey, I'm going to be posting this. Can we collab on Instagram? And they've worked together on that. Same thing at the institution level. We've had some members reach out in the last month. UKC, George Brown, Robert just mentioned it, Keanu. It's stories about a player of the year or a coach that attended a championship, and now they're moving on to something bigger, a professional contract or something like that. And we'd love to share that on our platforms as well, but we're not always aware when those stories are coming out. So, shooting us a quick email or text or tagging us in the story itself, then we can make an effort to promote your platforms as well. So again, I kind of wanted to open up. Maybe Ryan, you could speak to some of the stuff you're doing at the varsity level that you think that the conferences or the CCAA could maybe help in promoting.
Yeah, and a lot of members out there are putting more content or better content out there than what we are here. But I think for the most part, we're all producing similar content that is being posted at the member level, or institution level, at the conference level, as well as at the national level, your athletes of the week, your academic award winner, or whatever, your CCAA academic all Canadians. So there's a lot of content that's being shared multiple times. Does it make sense to be coming, that all three levels are creating that content individually? Or, is there a way to kind of share that information so that, if Brandon, if you're creating that, or Rodney, I don't know if Rodney was introduced or not, Rodney Wilson, manager of communications, or communications manager at the CCAA office, but Brandon mentioned him a few times, so we should probably introduce him for those that haven't worked with Rodney. But yeah, just different ways that I think we can share information, but also take some projects off our plates as well, so that we can do more with with similar resources, or for instance, making use of Rodney on the communications side rather than writing the stories ourselves, because I think Brandon and Rodney have both brought up before the bilingual aspect of it. So there are a few stipulations with that. Those are just kind of some of the thoughts I think that we can probably look at, of, I guess, doing a better job of, and coming up with ways that we can work better together on that.
Yeah, so again, this was kind of an opportunity if people had suggestions in these areas. We've done it as a smaller group. Ryan just brought up the athletes of the week, where Seneca posts it, then OCAA posts it, and then we post it, probably all within 24 hours. It's the same content. And, a lot of our smaller schools like that recognition, but is there a way we can either do it differently or more efficiently? Again, just open to suggestions. Another one was the marquee matchup. So we post that on Thursdays. We try to feature different schools each week, different matchups. Often the conferences will tweak us to, oh, this is a big rivalry, like Humber versus Sheridan men's basketball is happening. So if we know that ahead of time, we can definitely feature that. But is there a way to do it better, more engaging? One suggestion we had as the small group was posting the results as they come in too. So that's maybe something we'll look at doing. Athletes of the week one, Ryan had suggested maybe, profiling or doing a little deeper dive into some of the winners rather than just the photo posting each week. So again, just if there was ways we can do things better to help your brands celebrate your athletes, we'd be open to hearing those. So
I think of a lot of it, Brandon, is the content, and where are you getting the content from? If we're not sharing it, it's pretty difficult for you to do much with, you're doing a Google search essentially for photos, or going to Facebook or whatever to gather that content. If we're not willing to share that with you, it's tough for you to do much more than here's our athletes of the week, or here's a marquee matchup, and you have school logos to work with and nothing else. So I think a lot of that falls on the members in sharing that content, whether that's, do we look at a file sharing system where you need to upload, similar to what we do for championships, you need to share 12 to 15 photos, things like that.
is there a system that anyone's using within their either athletics or wider institution that they find is efficient for that? Again, I threw out CCAA uses a Google Drive account with several things tied to that, but we also have a Microsoft suite. And I know Ryan had mentioned that through their school, they're not allowed to use the Google one. So I guess if I set up through that, then they would be blocked anyways. So I don't know, is there something efficient that anyone else is using? Kayla, what were you using with the institutions in the ACAC?
For photos, we're using Flickr. So all of our members have to upload photos to their Flickr accounts. It doesn't have to be every game, but they just need to have some photos from their season. Preferably every game, but I know not everyone has those resources. But that's been super, super convenient for me, and I hope for other schools, and I hope for student athletes to kind of know where they can go retrieve those photos. And like if I'm a student athlete in Lethbridge and I'm going to Keano and we're having championships there, I know that my photos can be on Flickr, and I can go on Keano's Flickr, easily find it, rather than, you know, looking at SmugMug or all the other photo sharing apps. So we've kind of made that uniform in our conference, like everyone has to post on Flickr for their photos.
I see Robert's comment too about the scoreboard. Yeah, we could look at doing that. I guess question is, are people going directly to the conferences? We did try scoreboard a few years ago. It was probably when we first started with Presto around 2016. Are you going directly to the conferences to see what's going on? Are you using the CCAA website as kind of a go-between to get to different content? I know everybody's so busy, you know, you're probably focused on your institution, your own varsity programs, but we do want to be that more engaging platform outside of November and March. So if there is content you'd like to see on the site outside of those periods, please let us know. Anthony?
I think it's kind of outdated where we went into social media, which everybody gets notifications, and now we're taking a step back for a scoreboard. It's nice to have a centralized location, but it's the older generation, the grandpa and grandmas, who are gonna watch those scoreboards. And they're with so many schools or so many games. Like we have 60 on the weekend scoreboard. Are you gonna sit there for 5 minutes until the scores get ramp up? And they just rather just go straight to the site or go to social media.
That's a good point. We've had that discussion internally too, right? How much are people going on to the website to get the content, or are they just finding it on their favorite social media platform? So comment here from Nadine. Hit me with your best shot photo video contest. Member schools have media personnel submit what they feel is their best photo and video for the season. Actually, that's a great suggestion, and one we talked about with this CSC group as a larger, either opening up a kind of marketing communications awards. I would be happy to initiate that maybe internally with the CCAA. I know slightly different than what Nadine posted, but you know, maybe celebrate what some of our members are doing. If we Ryan highlighted our community service, innovation, and athletic director of the year awards. But it would be fun maybe to run some things that are a little more engaging for the student athletes. So, you know, if we come up with maybe 6 categories, that's something I'd be happy to take to our marketing committee to kind of promote for this coming season.
Brandon, that's something CANSIDA is looking at as well, getting off the ground. Obviously, it would be expanded outside of the CCAA schools, but yeah, I think, you know, just having some fun with it would be a good concept that would get some traction.
Kayla?
Yeah, I think another like tip for like CCAA, you guys, and like conferences, and then just all the members. If you just like look at other schools or professional sports teams accounts, like there's such great inspo from there. U Sports and Can West do a super job from their conference level. So if you like look at what they're posting, honestly, you could just, oh, they posted a photo today. Like you could just come and take a photo from the CCAA and essentially like copy it in a way. Like take that inspo from them and see what they're doing and what's working. Look at their engagements on there. And then same for like Satbir was saying, like he follows the Blue Jays and sees what they're doing, and you get that inspo from there. So I think just like getting inspo from other professional accounts or accounts in your conference that are already doing really well, and just kind of making it your own and see how you can work from there.
Thanks for sharing that, Robert. I was waiting for it to load on my computer. So that's your front runner for photo of the year?
I think Sean Michael Clancy would have a different opinion, but that's my vote.
Yeah, so I guess what I'll leave it with is that I would like to try and create that digital list of contacts, the people that were here today. I'll also reach out to all the schools that have those comms, marketing, SID people, and maybe we will try to expand on what Kayla's done at the ACAC level. maybe less of a template, but more of a sharing platform at this time. And I would love, Kayla mentioned having meetings with her group to maybe in December when everyone's got a bit of downtime, regrouping even outside of CSC with this group and, you know, see how the fall went, what's working, what's not working, ask questions, that kind of thing. So other than that, Ryan, I don't have much. I know the CSC group said they might pull us back in. So
No, they ended a few minutes ago. So we're good to wrap things up on our end unless anybody has anything else. No. Okay. Well, I wanted to thank everyone for attending this year's CANSIDA Divisional Days. Thought we had a lot of great conversation. Obviously, the information that was shared by our three presenters was fantastic, and I think we've all probably jotted some notes down. I know I have a few that I want to try to implement for the next season. You know, again, for those that helped us out with brainstorming for Divisional Day as well, thank you again. We had 39 members, which I think is amazing. As Brandon mentioned, last year we had 6, so we're growing. The CSC membership opens up, I think they said end of July, early August. There's a lot of great both networking and learning opportunities that are available for CSC members. And then obviously with the CSC Ignite convention next year, I think it's June 9th to 12th in Vegas. So we're looking to put together a big Canadian contingent, and hopefully we can continue to grow over and work together over the next year. Thanks again, everyone, and I hope everybody has a great day.